All right, we're here for our third presentation, and we're honored to have a presentation that's entitled Clinical Pediatric Weight Management in Rural Indiana, a Case Study. And presenters today are Matt Renfrow and Ian Hunt from Taylor University. Ian is going to be up here talking, so here we go.
Good afternoon. Like you said, my name is Ian Hunt, and I am an exercise science student from Taylor University. Today, we will be talking about clinical pediatric weight management in rural Indiana. We will be looking at a couple of case studies associated with that. Before I begin, I would just like to thank my faculty supervisors and professors, Dr. Brandon Dykstra and Dr. Matt Renfrow, just for their continued support and allowing me to participate in the study. Additionally, I would like to thank Dr. Paul Wolf and his staff at Marion Pediatrics for their partnership with us and allowing us to do what we do. So today we're going to define pediatric obesity, and we're going to look at scope and severity of pediatric obesity. Then we will look at our history and how we have attempted to combat this epidemic. Next, we will discuss the American Academy of Pediatrics and their proposed algorithm. Pediatric obesity.
Next, we will look at a couple of case studies who have completed our program to its entirety. And lastly, we will discuss our current and future work. So, what is pediatric obesity? A child is said to have obesity when that child's BMI, or body mass index, is greater than or equal to the 95th percentile for that child's age and sex. Now, the percentile is age and sex dependent, as both age and sex are major factors in the presence of fat. On a side note, a child is said to have overweight when that child's BMI ranges from the 85th to 94th percentile, and the child is said to have a healthy weight when the child's BMI is below the 85th percentile. To calculate BMI, basic measurements such as height and weight must be taken first. Height is measured in centimeters, and mass is measured in kilograms. To calculate, we divide the mass in kilograms by the child's height in meters squared. So this is a BMI chart. Here on the y-axis, you can see, or may not be able to see, that BMI is on the y-axis, and then on the x-axis, we have our age. And this is a BMI chart for boys aged 2 to 20. For example, if a 14-year-old male has a BMI of approximately 28, he will fall into the 97th percentile, and thus it will be determined that he has obesity. If an 11-year-old boy has a BMI of approximately 22, he will fall into the 90th percentile, and thus it will be determined that he has overweight. If a 15-year-old boy has a BMI of 22, he would fall into the 75th percentile and would thus be considered to have a healthy weight. So now that we know what pediatric obesity is, let's look at its prevalence. Worldwide, there are approximately 340 million children with obesity. In the United States, approximately 19% of all children have obesity. And in the state of Indiana, approximately 30% of all children have obesity. In Grant County, where we are located, 37% of all adults have obesity or are overweight. Now, this is an indicator statistic, as unfortunately there are no statistics available regarding pediatric obesity. So this does indicate that potential similar prevalences could be found in the pediatric demographic in Grant County. So now that we know what pediatric obesity is and its prevalence, let's take a look at some of the related ramifications that it brings about. So there are many consequences of pediatric obesity. There are physical consequences, the two most prevalent being type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. There are also social and emotional consequences. Two examples of these include lower self-esteem and low self-confidence, which is often brought about from being discriminated against, left out, and bullied due to their weight. Pediatric obesity also plays a profound effect on academic performance, as children with obesity are 4 times as likely to report an issue at school than their normal weight counterparts and are more likely to miss school than their normal weight counterparts. Lastly, pediatric obesity lowers the quality of life for that child. A study demonstrated that children with obesity reported a lower quality of life in all areas than their normal weight counterparts. Additionally, the same study indicated that children with obesity are more likely to have a impaired health-related quality of life than their normal weight counterparts. So we know that obesity is very prevalent in our society, and we know that it brings about some serious ramifications. So let's look at ways that our kinesiology program, attempted to combat this. It all began a couple of years ago when a group of former Taylor University students created a program that focused on weight management, and they worked with kids from Eastbrook South Elementary in Upland, Indiana. Now, there were only 2 kids that participated with this program, and one of them needed to lose weight, and one of them actually needed to gain weight. The program was then inherited by another group of Taylor University students who created a pilot study in partnership with Upland Community Church in Upland, Indiana. And they partnered with the church's after-school program. However, COVID cut this study short. So this brings us to 2020, this past academic year, where our Live Well program was created. One of the greatest aspects of this program is that we have a partnership with Marion Pediatrics in Marion, Indiana. And this is really due to the fact that Dr. Renfrow's wife, Hannah Renfrow, is a family nurse practitioner at Marion Pediatrics. So through that connection, we have been able to form a partnership with Marion Pediatrics, and they have actually allowed us to stay on site there. We have an office set up in their clinic, and that has just been a very huge blessing to have, as it is virtually unheard of for programs such as us to form such connections with local health organizations, pardon me. So now that you know previous attempts to combat pediatric obesity, what does the American Academy of Pediatrics actually suggest? So this is their algorithm for the assessment and management of pediatric obesity. It begins at a well child visit, where the caregiver assesses the child's behaviors. Next, they provide prevention counseling, specifically with the 5-2-1-0 metric, which is 5 fruits and vegetables a day, 2 hours or less of screen time a day, 1 hour or more of physical activity a day, and 0 sugary drinks per day. Next, they determine weight classification. So they take height and weight, and they calculate BMI and plot BMI percentile. From there are 3 possible classifications. So children with a BMI of less than 85th percentile would have a healthy weight. Children with a BMI ranging from the 85th to 94th percentile have overweight, and children with a BMI ranging above the 95th percentile do have obesity. From there, the basic components of a well child visit are administered. So this includes a family history, a review of systems, and a physical exam. After that, it must be determined as to whether or not the child has health risk factors. So generally, children in the healthy weight category do not have risk factors present, and thus continue on with routine care, which is continued support and encouragement for this healthy behavior. Children in the overweight category, they are a little bit more tricky, as it must be determined whether or not they have risk factors. And if they do not have risk factors present, they can continue on with routine care, just like those of the healthy weight category. However, if it is determined that there are risk factors present, then they would fall into the same category that those with the children with obesity fall into, which is having risk factors present, obviously. From there, they must go through lab screening, such as a fasting glucose lab, as there are a number of obesity-related conditions, some of which include type 2 diabetes and anxiety and depression. So So it is important to note here that we as a program tend to work almost exclusively with children with a BMI of 80, in the 85th percentile and above. This is our qualifications. This is part of our qualifications to be a part of our program and to get treated in our program. So let's look at the proposed stages of treatment as proposed by the American Academy of Pediatrics. The stage 1 of Prevention Plus is very general. Almost all of us have Prevention Plus care, and that is just with a primary care provider with positive encouragement to keep up the healthy behavior. The next stage of treatment, which is a little bit more intense, it is with the primary care provider, just with more appropriate training, and it is a bit more structured and a bit more supportive to help and ensure this positive behavior change. The next stage are comprehensive multidisciplinary intervention. This is actually in a pediatric weight management program, and the treatment is a modification program. The style, so dietary habits and physical activity levels are monitored, and dietary and physical activity goals
are developed. From there, stage 4, tertiary care intervention, and this is for the most extreme cases. It is with a expert in treating pediatric obesity, and like I said, is for the most extreme cases. Now, we as a program at LiveWell would fall into the comprehensive multidisciplinary intervention. So now that you know kind of where we fall, let's actually look at who we are and what we do. So let's talk about our LiveWell program. This is a picture of most of the coaches that make up our LiveWell program. So in the words we, us, or our program are mentioned, you can associate these faces with those terms. We really depend heavily on recruitment, and specifically referral from our Marion Pediatric staff partnership. As I mentioned before, we do have a partnership with Marion Pediatrics. We are actually in the clinic itself. Dr. Wolf and his staff have been very faithful about bringing in potential patients to us that they refer to us. And that has actually been a source for most of our recruitees. We also have flyers throughout the clinic, as well as recruiting via word of mouth and social media. So now that you know kind of how we begin and get people into our program, what is it? What is our program like? So this is just a basic outline. So it is 12 weeks, and it includes coaching, pre-testing and post-testing, and convenience sampling just for the sake of our study. Our vision, we want to provide a safe environment for children who may struggle with obesity, and we want to support them and encourage them while they are attempting to learn the skills necessary to adopt a healthier lifestyle and thus live well. Hence the name of our program. Our mission, we want to provide lifestyle coaching for pediatric weight management that is family-based. So we want to not only address our patient, but the patient's family as a whole, so that they may grow together to develop these healthy lifestyles and just engage in a loving manner with one another as they do that. Additionally, through our coaching, we emphasize life balance through nutrition, physical activity, and sleep habits. And lastly, we do provide resources and connections beyond our Marion Pediatrics partnership in order that our patients and their families can sustain the healthy behaviors that, Lord willing, they started to develop with us. Yeah. So now that you know just a little bit about our program, let's take a look at what it would look like if you were an actual patient. What would that look like? What would your time with us look like? So this is, we will be talking about my timeline here. Before I begin, we do have 4 modules: sleep, sedentary behavior, nutrition, and physical activity. And the reason being is each of these 4 areas do contribute in some way or another to the energy balance, mainly energy input and energy output, and specifically as that relates to weight. Each of these 4 modules do have 2 dedicated sessions for a total of 8 sessions. it is important to note that during these sessions, we practice motivational interviewing or ally. So we ask open-ended questions, pardon me. We listen intently and we answer and we inform them on what they are doing well and what they may need to work on. So with that being stated, let's actually look at the timeline. As I mentioned before, most of our participants are recruited via referral, and from there we reach out to them, contact them, and try to get them set up for an initial visit. During this initial visit is where we really build enthusiasm for the program. So we share with them our vision and mission regarding this program and them. And additionally, we do have them introduce themselves to us, and we introduce ourselves to them. We want to really get to know them so that we can form meaningful relationships that will last throughout the course of our program here. From there, we get into a testing day, specifically a pre-testing day. So we do administer a few cognition tests. We take basic measurements such as height and weight, as well as having them fill out a number of questionnaires, including a physical activity questionnaire, a nutrition questionnaire, etc. From there, we do get into our modules. Now, the order of our modules is completely subject to our patients. So if they have a particular area that they are most enthusiastic about, we can start with that area and work our way through. And the order is completely subject to them. For our sleep modules, we do really stress going to bed at the same time every day, developing a relaxing bedtime routine, as well as limiting screen usage before bed. For sedentary behavior, we stress the importance of moving. So we do stress trying to limit our sitting, as well as standing or moving every hour. For nutrition, we stress the importance of following the MyPlate diagram, specifically with the statement, eating food, not too much, mostly plants. So we want them to get the required amount of fruits and vegetables a day. So that is in connection with the 5-2-1-0 metric, 5 fruits and vegetables a day, as well as practicing mindful eating. And lastly, for our physical activity sessions, we do really stress the importance of physical activity. We discuss the health benefits of physical activity, as well as stressing its importance that some is better than none, and that some is better than none, and more is better than some. So we do stress the importance of physical activity. After we finish our modules, we move into a post-testing day. Here we administer the same cognition tests. We have them fill out the same questionnaires. We do the same basic measurements. And from there, we have a final visit day. So this is where we review with our patients the main ideas from each of the sessions. We do give them a graduation guide that they can fill out resonating ideas from each of the sessions so that they may have those to continue to refer to after their time with us. And we do give them gifts. So we do have a free 1-month membership to the YMCA just as an incentive for them to complete the program, as well as towels with our logo embroidered on it, as well as stickers with their logo on it. So now we'll look at 2 case studies who have actually completed our program to its entirety. The first we'll call Jack Boy. So we will look at Jack's demographics, the time frame that Jack was with us, Jack's demeanor throughout, and Jack's receptivity. So Jack was 10 years old from Marion, Indiana. He was often accompanied by one of his guardians at each of the sessions. He also did come from a split family. Jack began his time with us in late January and finished his time with us in mid-April. Jack's demeanor improved throughout the entirety of the program. So at first it wasn't the best, as Jack was shy, Jack was very deflective of any open-ended questions we would ask him, and he was very sluggish throughout the modules and sessions at first. However, his demeanor did improve, so Jack became excited about what we had to say. He was very open-minded to what we had to say, and he demonstrated a lifelong learner attitude, which is really just an utter eagerness to learn and grow. Similar to Jack's demeanor, his receptivity started out not so great. and progressed as he progressed through our course. So at first, Jack was not able to echo any of the main ideas from any of the sessions. So this indicates two things. Firstly, that Jack was not able to remember anything that we had discussed. And secondly, that Jack was not applying anything that we had discussed. However, as time moved on, Jack began to be able to remember what we had talked about. And not only that, but come up with creative ways in which he could integrate such ideas into his life. So I'm going to share with you just a couple of examples of some of the goals we developed together. For sedentary behavior, we came up with the idea of using a physio ball or standing instead of sitting at dinner or sitting while playing video games. And for sleep, we worked with Jack to come up with a routine, a bedtime routine, for sake of consistency between both of his guardians' households. So for example, we came up with the idea of going to bed at the same time every night, that being approximately 10:45 to 11-ish, somewhere in that realm, as well as powering his phone off 30 minutes before bed. Next, we will look at the girl that finished our program through its entirety, and we will call her Jill. So Jill, she was 17 years old, also from Marion, Indiana, came alone to most of the sessions, and came from a very thriving family. Jill began her time with us in late October of 2020. However, due to our break from early November until early January, which was our Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a New Year's break, all clumped into one break, she did not finish the program until late March of this year. Similar to Jack, Jill's demeanor also improved as she progressed through our program here. So at first she was shy, and she only responded to the questions that we asked her, but she never asked any questions of her own. Thus, there was very little interaction between the two of us. However, her demeanor did improve as she began to become talkative and open-minded. She asked questions, thoughtful questions that helped her learn more and more, and she demonstrated she became very personable with us, as she demonstrated her humor, and overall she was very engaged with what we had to say in our sessions. Her receptivity was great, so Jill was always willing and open and happy to try any of the goals that we developed for her, as well as listening to what we had to say. Additionally, Jill asked thoughtful questions that really helped her understand better how to incorporate these ideas into her life and really understand what it meant to have a healthier lifestyle. Additionally, Jill stated several times that the ideas clicked. So this indicates three things to us. The first being that Jill was able to remember the main ideas from each of the sessions. The second being that Jill was able to apply these main ideas into her life in a practical manner. And the third thing being, Jill was able to see how each of these ideas connected with one another to promote a healthier lifestyle in general. Additionally, Jill also came up with several creative goals in which she could incorporate into her life. So for physical activity, we discussed making it a very social event. So going to the park after school with her friend for a walk, or playing kickball with her friends, or her favorite, playing disc golf. And for sleep as well, we also developed a consistent, relaxing bedtime routine in which she would shower, also power her phone off 30 minutes before bed, and go to bed at the same time every night. Also, those times ranging from approximately 10:45 to 11 p.m. So now that we've introduced you to both of our case studies, let's look at the results. So we do have results on weight change, cognition, nutrition, and sleep habits. However, the most two significant of which being weight change and cognition. So let's look at Jack. We'll start with him first. Let's look at his mass. So before our program, Jack weighed in at approximately 55.8 kilograms. And after our program, he cut that down to 54.6 kilograms. Let's look at Jack's cognition. If you will notice, we have what is labeled on the x-axis, Trail A and Trail B. And these were two of our cognition tests that we administered. So trail making part A, we call it, we had Jack connect the numbers 1 to 2 to 3, all the way to 25. And for trail making part B, we had Jack connect numbers to letters. So 1 to A, to 2 to B, all the way to the letter L. So before our program, Jack finished trail making part A in 35 seconds and trail making part B in 122 seconds. And he was able to slash both of those times to 28.3 and 74 seconds respectively. We will be looking at the same areas for Jill. So before our program, Jill weighed in at approximately 91.1 kilograms, and after our program, she weighed in at 89.7 kilograms. For Jill's cognition, we did have her do the same cognition tests, so trail making part A and trail making part B, and she finished those in 26.67 seconds and approximately 49 seconds respectively. She was able to slash those to 20 seconds and 45 seconds respectively. While we are very encouraged by these statistical results, we've learned other lessons just beyond mere weight loss. And those being that one, we are very privileged to do what we do. It is a privilege to be able to form relationships with and get to know these children. And secondly, it is a tremendous privilege to demonstrate the love of Christ through our interactions with these children, as well as serving those who may be less fortunate than ourselves. And lastly, one of the biggest lessons we learned is that although these statistics may not seem significant, if we know that they have incorporated the ideas from each of the sessions and have changed their behaviors, then we can be assured that they will live healthier and live better, which is very encouraged. So we are very encouraged by our previous patients. We are encouraged by our current patients, and we hope to be encouraged by our coming patients, pardon me. So that brings us into what we are doing currently. So this summer, I am running the clinic 40 hours a week. Truth be told, I spent most of that time up until this point preparing for this conference. But I am also continuing to guide our patients that we have through the modules and through our course. Additionally, I will be making any module and module assessment revisions that we might deem necessary. So if we need to add information or remove information, I will be doing that, as well as I'll be continuing to collect and analyze and enter the data from that convenient sampling from each of the patients that come through. And lastly, I will seek to make connections with local organizations and institutions such as elementary schools and the YMCA, for example. For this fall, we do hope to continue to build on the success that we were able to have this past academic year, as well as, Lord willing, this summer. So that being just continuing to guide our patients through the course modules in our program in general, as well as just being able to share the love of Christ with our patients, serve those who may be less fortunate than themselves, and really seeking to help families engage with one another in a loving manner. However, we do have a specific focuses, those being enhancing our recruiting. So that is in relation to the connections and partnerships we formed this summer, really recruiting through those connections so that we may reach a broader group of people and thus bring in more people in which we can serve. And the second being improving our marketing. So in relation to our social media pages, as well as being in communication with a human resources professor here at Taylor, so that we can better market and better reach out to more people. So with that being said, we are very encouraged by what we have done, and there's much to anticipate and be praying about as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we've got a few minutes for questions. Any questions to start off from our virtual participants or here in the meeting room? I've got one for you.
Yes, sir.
Some of the previous studies have shown that the parents of overweight children tend to lean more towards overweight or obese themselves. What kinds of activities are these students bringing home with them that might influence their families?
First of all, that's a great question. Actually, currently, we do have a family of 2 brothers, and both of the parents actually do show up. And so when we do develop goals, what we try to do is we try to make it family-based. So the entire family is doing it. So for example, going for family bike rides, going for family walks, those sorts of things, as well as cooking together, making sure, and those are the two that really come to mind as far as family-wide. But yeah, cooking together, we just wanted the entire family to be able to do it because we want them to grow together. Obviously, there are some issues with lifestyles. Obviously, they're not the most healthy. We realize that kind of starts with the parents in some cases. And so we want to make that family-based so that the entire family can grow together, have healthy lifestyles. So to kind of answer your question, we do try to make our goals family-based, if that makes sense.
Sure. One of the studies that came out in the 2010s, I forget exactly what it was, showed that children who are obese that bring home knowledge from a nutrition class or a physical education class in school tend to have more success in persuading their parents to make changes than those parents just getting the information off of the internet or hearing commercials or even being told by their doctor. So I think that's a great thing to get the families connected in that particular area. Other questions? Jordan?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So you guys started this program, what year?
I think that was 2018.
Oh, okay, so it's been
I
going
wasn't
on.
a student.
No, that's fine. It's been going on for a while because my question is kind of, have you seen any difference in numbers, maybe even just like participants or influencers or not, pre-COVID versus post-COVID? Is that something that you guys have looked at?
Well, I don't know if I did a great job explaining, well, and if that's the case, my fault. There are actually 3 separate programs. So the first was a program, and we only had 2 children in general. So like I said, one needed to gain weight, one needed to lose weight. The second was a pilot study with the after school program at a local church. And that was just a broad number of kids. But as far as how many of those kids actually needed the coaching and this kind of treatment in the sessions that we taught, very, very few of them did. And like I said, that was a pilot study, and that was unfortunately put to rest when COVID came about.
Yeah.
So then that's when we formed our current program, and actually we do have a number of clients, and I would say much more actually need our treatment and our coaching now than we had previously.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was like, if you've seen any kind of, difference in, like just video game usage, that type of lifestyle and things like that, coming from not getting out and about. And I have a 12-year-old, so I just, my daughter, I think about like just, difference in not playing sports for her. She's played every sport coming and go, and then when that stopped, it was just like very abrupt, and it took us a while to be like, okay, you can play again.
Yeah, one of the things that precedes Ian too, since my name is technically on the presentation, one of the things that precedes Ian is it was incredibly difficult to work through the process of how do we, at a tiny liberal arts college, small town, how do we target ethically children who struggle with their weight? I mean, you guys know IRB stuff, like it's a nightmare, right? Like it is a nightmare to try and get that through. It's like they're good, but with it. But okay, when I started thinking through it, I started reaching out to people around me, like at big institutions. I've been in a great connection with Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is one of the world's best children's hospital. And I spoke with her named Shelley Kirk, does great work there, and we still actually work with her. And I was like, Shelley, how do you guys get your patients? Like, I'm like, I can't just go into the school and be like, hey you. With the Eastbrook, the school we went to initially, we got 2 kids, 120 kids. We canvassed, if you will. It's all like 4th and 5th grade or 6th grade. Every single class, 2 grades, emails, flyers. We went to school and did like stuff with the kids, and we got 2 tailored faculty kids. One of them had mild form of CP, and one of them, he needed gain weight. The other kid needed to lose some weight, and actually he's always like there. So all that to say is, man, it was so hard, and that's why I'm like, okay, I'm pulling the plug, honey. Let's talk to Dr. Wolf, and let's see if we can get into, and that's how it is. And so, there's so much medical red tape. There's a diabetes prevention program run by one of my colleagues in our department, and they're across the street, and they did it for 2 years. And I was like, Eric, are they ready for pediatric stuff? It's like, I don't, honestly, it's like I've been working for 2 years, and it took us a year to get this situated. You can try, but I don't think they're ready. I hope we can do it. And I contacted the CEO of the hospital multiple times, and nothing. So I'm like, all right, forget it. I know, Dr. Wolf. I'm going to go talk to them. So,
Very good.
So, you have a question, Dr. Little?
Yes.
It looked like your team there had a pretty good camaraderie amongst themselves.
Yes, sir.
How do you guys enjoy your work with that? Do you feel like the ministry type of situation? I know you said earlier that you feel privileged to work with you. Absolutely. So how does that affect you?
So first question, do we enjoy what we do together? I would say absolutely. We're all there for a reason. We wanted to be a part of this program, and it is important to know that not everyone gets invited to be a part of this program. You have to show interest in it, obviously, but Dr. Renfrow and Dr. Dykstra actually reached out to us because they knew, one, that we either had a passion for kids, or that we would enjoy this sort of work very well. So yes, from my experience, we have all very much so enjoyed the children that we have worked with. Your second question was that
You view it as ministry.
and that's something I can't speak to every person in general, but personally I do, and I think that's really the reason why we do what we do. But as far as doing it as a ministry, absolutely. A lot of these kids come from, not so great lives, and we have the opportunity to, be a light in their life and really treat them well, treat them with respect, just demonstrate Christ's love through what we do. So absolutely, yes, absolutely.
That's what it appears to be. It looks like there's benefit on both ends.
Yes.
Kids and
Absolutely.
not everyone else.
Capitalizing on that, do you do anything related to spiritual health with those students as far as focusing on who they are in Christ and how the spiritual temple that they're caring for has eternal value? I mean, there's lots that you can go into that area, but have you seen any connection to that?
I personally don't.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Brandon and I, Dr. Dykstra, we had discussed that early on. I would say and actually, Dr. Wolf, who owns the practice, and actually most of the providers there, my wife, the other physician that's in our small group, a lot of them are believers, but since the practice isn't, if you will, named as like a Christian medical practice, and since we're on site with them, it is, if you will, a more passive inherent worth ministry as opposed to evangelism or those sorts of things. But I mean, if you have ideas how that would be, because my other concern would be turning off people who are not believers, or not open to that, open to our faith. And so, we would definitely take notice and consideration, because that's obviously, that is our motivation, is to love people, love them as Christ loves them, and if they would be willing and open to share the gospel, but trying to balance those things well aside.
Well, I see in the presentation you talk about cognition and actually doing a test on that. You can do a spiritual health assessment of that individual and see where they lie, and if there are gaps or there are issues that they need to have addressed, then that could be something to easily be followed up with. I know there are some conditions about some parents don't necessarily want you to talk to their children about religion or faith, but as you address it as a spiritual health component, you avoid some of those issues. And so you bring up, as a student, ask a question about, what does this have to do with myself? You say, well, here's how I feel about, or here's what I believe about your spiritual health, what the body says in 1 Corinthians about what your body is, your temple, how you treat that, and giving them a different perspective. That correlates a lot to mental health and the way that they have cognitive ability towards their body, cognitive ability towards the thing they do. So there are ways to get around that. It's curious to see where you're going and how far you're going, because it just seems to be a natural kind of thing to do. Anything else? All right, Ian, we're very thankful that you were here with us today. The Board of Directors of C-Skills would like to give you a stipend for being a part of our conference and saying thank you for really joining us and bringing us this research. Dr. Renfrow, thank you for encouraging him to come and be a part of this. We're very grateful that you had the opportunity to be here with us. So thank you again. Appreciate it.